that's what I was gonna talk about this week because this week I'm like I don't even know. Like this week I'm like in a weird spot, I think. So yeah, so last week I started my new job, like last local. It was my first day. So I was like, okay, whatever. Like it was a pretty light day, but like I woke up early. Like I was up at like 6 a.m., you know?
Hmm.
Woke up early at 6. I went to work at like Young and Shepherd, and then I drove all the way down uh
Oh,
to
you're at Young and
downtown, set
Shepherd?
up the local. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow, you're like right nearby me, huh? That's funny.
Oh, that's cool. Where are you? I'm between Bayview and Viserion Station.
Oh, I'm
That's
at
where I
like,
live.
oh, I'm at Don Mill. I'm right south of Fairview, so Don Mills and
Oh,
Shepherd.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, like I went to work. Uh I went to work and then I got there, like carried all my TVs and shit. Set up the stream, like blah blah blah. And then I played and then I don't know. I think because I had like a lot of new stuff and I was playing a lot the week before cuz like I didn't have to work.
Hmm.
Um I was playing a lot, so like, and I was trying a lot of new stuff, and like I was saying, like, I thought like the fact that I could use the platforms and like play the game in a like kind of new way almost, like it was like fun for me, you know. And then I won the tournament, and I would like literally went to work the next day. I went to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning, woke up at 6 again, and then whatever. So like I've been tired all this week, and I know that's like silly kind of, but it's like this is my first like in office job in like 5 years. Like I've been remote otherwise. Um, so I don't know. I like even today, like I was like, do I cancel? I don't know. I'm fucking exhausted. Like I actually got like yelled at by my boss today. Not literally yelled at, but he was like, are you just tired? Like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, I just need to go to bed earlier, but. I don't think that was why I played bad yesterday. I had the general sense, and like people were telling me at the local, like, dude, you are playing like shit. Um, which was like, I don't know, funny, but also like, um, I have this thing sometimes, and I talked to Zane about it at Collision, where there are sometimes I play in tournament, and I just know that I'm not playing good, and it's not like a mental thing. Like my execution is terrible. Like I cannot wave dash. I can't fast fall at right timings. I'm missing all my L cancels. But then like if I play for like a couple hours in the tournament later, like I'll execute a little better, the stuff that I'm like really messing up, but I'm still not all there like at once, you know? So it feels like it feels like I always notice it, like with execution at the beginning, like, oh God, you know? But it's not until like I have to execute where it becomes a problem, if that makes sense. And then when I don't have to execute and it's like it's time for me to take a mental, I feel like I've exhausted so much, like trying to get back in place, like it doesn't work.
I think that you just nailed the. I think that you just kind of nailed it on the head there, like the nail it on the head there when you said exhausted. To me, this sounds
Yeah.
exactly like fatigue.
Yeah. I just don't like I don't know. Cause I read I was actually reading that guide you sent last week. I hadn't had the chance to read it yet because I've actually just been really busy this past week, but I um I was reading it and I think I got over like halfway through and I've been taking notes in my server for like what I've been reading so far. And I think like big takeaways of stuff I don't already do is like trying to play trying to play more actively and like why I should play more because like even GooseCon will tell me if I go to the local, he's like, yeah, you just don't play people, and I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to people and say hi and hang out or whatever, but I like will say yes every time someone has to play me, so I think I need to do better about that. But I think also like the other one was like the guy like and it's an old guide. I don't know if like people have changed perspective nowadays, but like it said like you can't use exhaustion as an excuse. Like if you're tired, like you just gotta wake up. And I'm like,
Okay,
man, if I knew how to do that in the middle of a meeting, that'd be so nice, you know?
so like
But
I
yeah,
said, that was written for a different time, so not everything in
yeah,
there
yeah.
is going to be accurate. What I would comment on nowadays with our a bit more holistic approach and our better understanding of how people work, I
Mm.
would say that the reason exhaustion is not an adequate excuse is because you are ultimately responsible for your tournament conditions in certain respects, and level of energy is one of them.
Yeah.
So that would encompass thing. I think that the way I'd put it is if you are making the decision to play out the tournament, I'm exhausted and you're exhausted, then that is a consideration that you have accepted you're going to be dealing with.
Yeah.
What
Well,
I would what I would say though is I think that you sound like you're just having trouble managing your. To me, it sounds like you're having trouble managing your time. Because like, why are you staying up till like 2 a.m.? Like, what are you doing? Are you playing?
No, I've just been hanging out with a couple people.
Okay.
Hanging out or like this past week I've been going out trying to get stuff like ready for my job. So like I've been going out like getting clothes and then I'm like meal prepping at night or then I'm cleaning my apartment or doing laundry or whatever. Like I'm trying to my because the whole week before I'm like I'm just gonna play Melee. Like I don't care how I am outside of it. I'm just gonna play. And like it was good. And I was like, okay, I'm happy. And then I work and then I come home and I only have like a couple hours where I like actually pass out. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, this can't happen. So now this week I didn't play as much. But I think like this weekend I cleaned my apartment. I got that all sorted out, whatever. So I don't think that was really like a too much of an issue for Tuesday. The where I'm noticing it, like, because this, like I said, this has been an issue that's happened for me like consistently, and I don't think it really is like exhaustion or anything like that or stretching myself too thin. Like I'll give you an example. Like at um, Collision and there's another major. I'm not sure, but I'll use Collision for this example anyway. Um, there are times where like I will sit down on a setup. We might have talked about this before. I'm not sure. There are times
So.
There are times when I sit down on a setup, and I know it is a bad TV, and anything like, and I feel like I'm pretty good at noticing it because even when I was playing pools at Collision, I played against a Falco player, and I was like, wow, I'm executing really poorly. Like that's weird, and like the same issue that like I had otherwise. I'm like, why can't I do like basic movement? This is off. And I start overthinking it or whatever, and I'm paying attention to that, but ultimately, like, I can still stick to my game plan kind of and win. Um, and then I went and played JJM in the next set, and I just stayed on the TV I was at, because, like, the TO was like, yeah, go play there. I'm like, okay. And then I start playing against him, and I have to start actually, like, executing a little harder than against, like, a Falco I can just gimp over and over. And I'm like, oh, wait, like, I can't punish, like, down smash on my shield or anything, or, like, I'm unable to, like, do like wave dashes or something and get like poke him with a down tilt if he's like in the corner or something pulling a turn up. And I'm like, oh wait, this is bad because now like I'm just letting like quote unquote easy execution Peach with flow cancels and stuff. She's just gonna mash against me and I can't defend against it. And this is bad. So I was talking to Zane about it after. And he was like, yeah, honestly, I do know what you're saying. And also like for other context, Cody tweeted about it. He's like, yeah, we need to just have a standard for CRTs or something like that because they are drastically different. People don't talk about it enough, and it sucks. Like, every time you play on a stream, they're always way better than the TVs you play on pools. You're kind of playing like a TV lottery. And I was talking to Zane about it, and he was like, yeah, like, it is a real thing, but I think you just got to be better. I've been thinking about what that means for, like, a long time. I'm like, okay, if I just need to be better, quote unquote, that just means I need to like hit harder or like get hit less or be more confident in like what I'm doing, which is like totally fair, and I respect that. At the same time, I've also talked to other people about it, and I like, for example, like I've talked to Swift about executing against Puff, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like I do practice pivots like every time right before I play a Jigglypuff in tournament, and he's like, yeah, but do you practice every day at home? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, that's maybe you should do that because like I feel like if I can't execute and hit my stuff every day, then I just don't deserve to play, and I won't. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, man, that seems a little drastic.
Yeah, that doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah. Well, I don't think so either. But I get the point that he's trying to make, where it's like if I don't put in the work for it, then like I shouldn't have the expectation, right? Which I think is fair.
You do put in the work though.
I think I put in the work outside of the game quite a bit. I don't know if I necessarily like play enough, but I don't know. Like everyone's different, right? So like what that means for me versus like Curtis or Zane or Aklo or whatever, like that's totally different.
Can I show you an instructional video?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I like this video. Let me just make sure everything's at normal speed. Okay, cool. Is the volume good?
Yeah, that's fine.
I want to tell you about a conversation I had with someone at a local. To avoid calling anyone out, let's just refer to them as unnamed Mark Main. The two of us were talking about warming up, and we both felt that took us a long time before we started playing up to our skill. The unnamed Mark Main was convinced that took him a solid 4 to 5 hours before they started playing at their base level. Around the same time,
of this hitting?
I was working hard on tactics.
It's pretty similar. I think
as I regularly felt like I could.
The thing is, it's not something that's like regular, you know? It's an issue that'll come up here and there where I notice my execution is like really, really bad.
Okay.
Like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, yeah, like I do also have that problem sometimes too, where I'm like, if I'm really playing good, it's because I've been warming up and playing for hours, and like that's just how I'm gonna play that day, if that makes sense. But this is more like, oh my god, I can't move. The issue or the
like when you know that you're playing well because you've been warming up for hours and hours and hours, like how consistently do you continue to play like super well?
I don't know. Like, I think the problem is I don't like playing for more than like 2 hours at a time. I feel like I'll get tired, or like I won't be doing anything like productive with it, if that makes sense. You know, like there's only so much I can practice from like my notes before I've just like done everything I'm gonna do on my own for the day. So I'd rather just like quit then, and like if I want to play again later that night, I will maybe. But if it's like a tournament, I also don't really know, because I think I treat it like each set is like its own little like moment, if that makes sense. It's not like one continuous marathon. But I also watch it like it's like one marathon when I get home. So I don't know. I think if there's going to be a day where I'm playing 4 hours, that's usually pretty consistently how I feel about it. But I wouldn't say that's how I feel about it every time I play Melee, if that makes sense.
I think that's very insightful that you can recognize that there's a limit. Let's keep watching.
I'd be playing great in friendlies 1 minute, then drop inputs the second it became tourney. Warm-up routines weren't helping me much, so I started turning to what I could do mentally, and shared that I thought there was a much more abstract solution than just playing more. Today, I'm going to go over where I went wrong, why I think it held me back, what actually makes an effective warm-up for myself, and my thoughts on getting into the zone. I'd also like to add that I don't necessarily think this is definitively how everyone should view warming up. My goal is just to tell you about where I think I went wrong, and possibly help you find something that works for yourself in the process. I want to start by talking about my focus during warm-up.
This is so
The
funny.
idea that more warm-up equals better play or winning is where I think I went wrong the most. My idea of warming up was playing.
I could only imagine the commentators cooking this guy.
Yep. And that the more I did it, the longer I did it, and more intensely I did it, the better I would play. It wasn't until recently, though, that I started warming up with the idea, whatever happens, happens, or we'll see how it goes before a match. My intent with these mantras is to go into a set with an open mind and help me prepare with a clearer head. Keeping "I'll see how it goes" in mind keeps me from overanalyzing how well I think I'm playing before a match, and to stay grounded during prep. This is what led me to how I think about warming up today. Trying to not try. The way I would describe warming up now wouldn't be to necessarily make myself start playing well, but to set myself up to play well. To put it another way, the difference is pressuring yourself to play well and supporting yourself to play well. Whenever I warmed up with the intent of grinding as much as possible.
So do you see the difference between those ideas?
I might have to hear the exact wording again. I won't lie. I did kind of zone out that exact second.
That's okay. Listen carefully, though.
Up to play well. To put about warming up today. Trying to not try. The way I would describe warming up now wouldn't be to necessarily make myself start playing well, but to set myself up to play well. To put it another way, the difference is pressuring yourself to play well and supporting yourself to play well. Whenever I warmed up...
Okay, sure. Yeah, I do think I understand that. Where it's like, I need to play well versus like, go play well kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Well, even like, how is "I need to play well" and "go play well"? Are they like how are they different? Aren't they both commands?
Well, yeah, like, okay, I would word it like playing to win versus playing to not lose, you know, like kind of like that. Like playing to not lose is like you have to play well don't mess this up. It's Quiggles. Like, you can't lose to Quiggles. And then, like,
so wait, with
telling
playing to win, didn't we just like? I thought the whole point of playing to win was that like we were playing to win, because we just mentioned that like we can't lose to Quiggles. To me, that sounds like we're playing not to lose.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, it's don't lose to Quiggles. It's playing not to lose. Whereas like playing to win is like, oh, I really want to beat Jakob. Like, I need to play good, but I need to like make sure that I'm like doing the right stuff, if that makes sense. Versus like, I need to not get hit by XYZ. Does that make sense?
It kind of does. So like, what if Quiggles is playing really well?
I don't know. Like, maybe in my head, like it's just Mike, and like if I know if I'm playing better, like I'm gonna be okay. You know, that's kind of how I look at it.
But isn't that true for every player? Like, if you're playing better,
No,
than
it
them,
is.
then you're going to be okay.
like it is. It's a matter. I think the way I'm looking at it is like there's like tiers of players, right? And I'm like, if I just lock into a higher tier that Mike hasn't hit, then like quote unquote, then it's fine. But I don't know. I also don't really believe that either. I just
yeah, I was gonna say
like
like
I can like tell myself like so I calm down when I'm playing, you know.
I feel like
I do think he can.
reassuring yourself.
Yeah, no, like that's pretty much it, you know. So
To me, that sounds like you have not yet embraced one of the fundamental truths of this game, but that's okay. This is a learning process. Let's keep watching.
The intent of grinding as much as possible, I'd end up trying really hard to do everything. This would lead me to pressing too hard on inputs, gripping my controller too tight, and at the time of writing this, wearing wrist braces for 8 weeks. Hand pain issues aside, this type of playing requires a lot of active thinking on a lot of different things. It helped me to remember I've played Melee for probably thousands of hours at this point. I shouldn't need to try so hard since the muscle memory is in my subconscious. Warming up now, my goal is to do my inputs with as little effort as I can give. I think this mindset is especially useful when I consider the idea of flow state, or getting into the zone. Flow state, by definition, is the act of being fully immersed in the action you're doing, immersion being the key word here. The usual train of thought for getting ready is to warm up directly into playing well. I've started thinking though that I should actually go warm up into flow state into playing well. I don't think I'm alone when I say I've thought of being in the zone to just mean playing well, but it's actually important to consider the difference. Being in the zone isn't necessarily playing well, but more that playing well is a byproduct that can happen from being in the zone. Being in flow state means to have only your action present in your mind, no other stimulus distracting you, no thoughts of placements or ranking, no judgments on cheap or unfair, no thoughts on whether you're good or bad. Being in the zone doesn't mean playing well, it means you're not getting distracted, and blocking out distraction is what allows you to play to your real potential. The difference between conscious and subconscious brings me to my next point.
So, do you see where we're kind of like, do you see why why I suggested this video?
I kind of see it. I don't know. I guess maybe you might have to tell me like what you're hearing and what I'm saying about why it's relevant, but I do see how it's like related, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, so talk to me about that. Like, how is this related?
So, I mean, I think it's related in the sense of like, doesn't really matter if I think I'm playing well or not. Like, at the end of the day, I'm playing another person. Like, if I can just like focus on what they're doing and less about what I'm doing, like that's what matters more. I mean, that's my interpretation of it, I guess. But the other thing that's like, what's like conflicting about that to me is like, I also can't do what I want to deal with them well. Like, if I drop a punish, it's like whatever. I drop a punish, like that happens, you know. That happens against even when I'm playing good. Like, so I don't really get flustered by that stuff. It's more about when I'm missing like the most basic things while trying to either protect myself or move or something like that, where I feel like compared to last week, for example, where I had like, I was playing really well, like I was moving good and I felt like I had a lot of mix-ups and whatever, and now it's like I can't even present a level 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're not, you did really well. You got to see yourself, you got to see kind of like where you can go next with your playstyle. There was a lot of like positivity there. It was very engaging. It was very, very tantalizing even. And now you're like, and then as a result, would you say that there's now an expectation of being able to emulate that level?
No, like even this week, I like went into the tournament with like zero expectation. This is like, I don't know. It sounds dramatic, but like I think it's like very visible in my game plan, and like a lot of people were telling me that. It was also like, dude, what's going on? You know, like it's a I feel like there's just a weird thing where like there are days where I just don't execute, period. Like,
Yeah,
and I don't really know how I deal with that. Like I know how I can not care about it. And like I
That's
even
not
did
the,
that later in the tournament,
that's
but
not a solution though, because like the thing is,
well, I agree.
we're
Yeah.
just fighting our emotions at that point, right?
Yeah.
We're
Well,
pretending,
exactly.
yeah, like we're pretending that reality is not what it is. So
And that's like even this like flow state thing, like I'm not like directly thinking about it, but like for example, like I went and played Mike and I scrape by him and I'm like, "Oh god, that was bad." And I go warm up on another setup and I play with Mickey from Waterloo and we play for a bit and like I still feel like I'm playing terrible, but I'm like, "Okay, whatever, like is what it is. I got to go play now." And I go play MG and I get 30'd. I get owned. And then I'm like, "Okay, that was really bad." I like feel terrible about like one, I know I need to like put time into like learning my punish against Falcon. That's like a side thing. But two, like it sucks when I'm like not able to keep up at all. Everything feels slow. I can't move the way I want to. Like this is bad. So I'm like, okay, I know I at least have time because I was in winners. Between winners and losers, I can like go warm up and really just force it out, and I'll do it on my own this time versus like playing someone, and that'll help. And it did, for what it's worth. So I, instead of like listening to the game music like I do, I just put on an album I really like, and I like went up and I started beating up a CPU and just moving around the stage like how I would in tournament. And then I started playing better, and like to be fair, like that helps, but it doesn't really like sometimes you just don't have that time to prep, and I'm like that can't be like how it is. Like why is it that there are days when I turn on unranked on my computer or go to a tournament and I'm just playing like really fast, really like I don't even want to say really good because like I don't really care so much about the result, about like the decision making. I'm talking about the execution part of it. Like why is it that some days that works and that other days like it's really really bad, and it's less about, I feel like it's like less about my thought process and a lot about my like, I don't know, like timings. It feels like timings are off for the most part, you know?
well, I can't.
Does that make sense?
I mean, like it does, but I don't know how it would diagnose those from here. But what I
Yeah.
would say is like I think that that's exactly what he's talking about here when he says about his preparation. Because when you're like, remember, he's just like they're describing the act of like warming up as something that they're doing. They're just grinding matches. They're playing like they're playing as much as they possibly can until everything's perfect. But as a result, they start trying really hard. They're like very focused and critical of like every single mistake they're making. What you've described as helping is putting on putting on an album you really like, right? Playing on your own for a bit. Probably not thinking too hard about like the odd mistake that you're making here and there, or maybe making very frequently. I don't know, but your attention is not there. Your attention is elsewhere. What are you focusing on when you're listening to the music?
Well, like I like the
Directly
music
into
because
playing
it helps me like not listen to people in the background, and it kind of like takes me out of it a little bit. Because I have like super noise canceling headphones. Like it's almost like a little echo chamber in there. But um that's just so I don't have to listen to people and I can just like kind of like what you're talking about, like turn off my brain a little bit. But I am focusing like hard on like the stuff I'm messing up, just as if I were to be doing it when I'm playing against a person. Like when I'm warming up, like I'm literally just trying to like make sure the because I can't hear the sound obviously. Like I'm just trying to make sure the animation for like a waveland like lines up to what I know to be like a really good one versus like the like an ata or something. Or like a wave dash like looks like it's like a frame perfect wave dash or like at least close to versus another ata. Like because that's what was happening a lot when I'm playing Mike. It's like a really bad ata or like a fair and I'm light shielding after because I don't L cancel or whatever, right? Like but just make and like it's a struggle to even get that while I'm warming up, you know? Like it really does take like 20 minutes at a time just grinding it out over and over. Um while also like beating up a CPU. Like it's not like I'm like doing it 20 times in a row kind of thing. Like people make fun of like PPMD how he warms up on his stream kind of thing. Like I'll still like beat up a CPU here and there in between just to like do other stuff so I'm not hyper focusing on it, I feel like. But at the same time, yeah, it just feels random. Like it's like at one moment it clicks versus like another moment, and I don't struggle to execute it further, you know.
Okay, so let me
But
ask you, how often do you use a hand warmer?
Every tournament, like actually every tournament. Like I have an electric one. I've been using it for about a year.
I mean the minute they give you before the set to like
Oh.
basically, yeah.
Depends. Like if I feel like for example, like I'll play MG and we always hand warmer just because he always wants one. But if I ask my opponent and if they say no, I won't. But if I feel like I'm not playing good, then I'll take it anyway. But so I'd say it's like 50-50 for those kind of sets, you know? Like I always ask because I got tweeted against that I'm an asshole for not asking. But
why do you have to
yeah.
ask? Well, like if you say I'm doing a hand warmer, I'm allowed. Like I'm gonna take a hand warmer. Like why? What happens if they say no? Can't you just be like, but I'm allowed one?
Yeah, no, I can. But like I don't know. I often get like told by Shamiz quite a bit, like, yo, like Jacob, like hurry up, man, like we gotta end on time. And I'm like, all right, like he'll get annoyed, you know. No, I understand, but
it's like,
yeah,
it's literally okay. So what I would tell Shamiz is, I will play much better after the 1 minute, which will reduce the overall time of the set by like 3. So
well, that's my thing is I don't even believe that. Like I do hand warmers just so I can like make sure, like it's almost like a confirmation check. Yep, like I'm not messing up my inputs. Cool. But if I am, it's never like good enough. Like I'm like, oh god, you know. So that's my perspective on it. I'm like I don't really believe in the minute hand warmer if I'm for the purposes of like actually getting warm in game, you know. It should be called button check for what I use it for at least. But I guess I never like learned how to hand warmer, if that makes sense either.
Well, you do know how to hand warmer. Like it's what you do for what you did in the 20 minutes when you were like on your own.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, what if you do that before every single set for 1 minute, right? Then it won't be all at once the way that it is with the 20 minutes that you'd spend. Yeah. But like it'll probably, do you think it might like have a progressive effect? Because it's like 1 minute like at the beginning and like 1 minute with your round 1 opponent. So
yeah, I could see that, honestly. That could be possible, yeah. Yeah, especially if I'm doing like different things. Like if I were to do like if I just start the day with wave dash, because that's how I test like, is this setup laggy even? I feel like wave dash is like a very like burned in timing, normally at least. But like if I start like a minute long hand warmer with wave dashing in round 1, and then like during my round 1 set, I'm like, oh god, like my L cancels are really bad. I keep light shielding. Like next set I can warm that up, and maybe it gets progressive. Well, I don't know if it necessarily like fixes the problem, you know. Like that would assume I can just win every round and keep doing the minute long hand warmer, but it's not a bad idea.
Well, like the idea is that like if it's progressive, right? Like we get more benefit from it as the day goes on as we keep doing it. So it should scale with the difficulty of the opponent, assuming the seating's good. But more importantly, it also gives you like valuable information, like you pointed out about the setup. Like I think that if we don't take the hand warmer, we're more likely to get caught off guard by a TV that's laggy. But that gives us a chance to like calibrate, get ourselves moving comfortably. Before we're under the pressure of like an opponent moving around and stuff, right? That's valuable because we're not caught off guard by it anymore.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think I wouldn't know how to go about that. Like, let's say like, okay, I'm in the hand warmer and I'm like, oh god, this TV sucks, and I make a move to another one. And I'm like, oh god, this TV's worse, and like now where do we go, kind of thing. Like, do I have to pick and choose, or
no?
I don't know really how to navigate that.
We play the TV they assigned us to.
Yeah, so I just have to like deal with it anyway. Like, okay, yeah. I guess that's what Zane said. Yeah.
All right. Like we deal with it anyway, and like we use the time to like assess how we're gonna deal with it. Like, how do our timings change based on this TV being the way it is? How do we have to like move? Like, how do our hands move differently? Like, we pay attention. We be mindful. We put on our music. We like look at what it takes, what the motion is to like get that nice wave that nice wave dash, that nice waveland, that good like the fast fall nair.
Yeah.
Like we focus on moving comfortably with the slight adjustment in our conditions. And
Okay, so let's talk about that. So how do you like to go about adjusting timing? I feel like that's something I'm very bad at, and like for example, like if I know a TV is not great, and I'll compare it almost to like Slippy. Like I will play. I'm very comfortable playing on like bad TVs. Like it's not something I really take issue with, but I notice it, and I'm like, okay, I have to play around it, kind of, not necessarily adjust to it. I don't feel like if I actually will play people from France some here and there on 3-frame delay, and it's like a frame off, whatever. Like it's not a big deal, but it is noticeable. Like you switch back to 2-frame and you're like, oh my god, like the weights are off, but like you still execute mostly the same for the most part. You're just a little faster, or at least that's how I feel about it. But
that's how I feel mostly too. Like it's just
yeah.
When I'm on a setup that I don't feel like is very good, or like it's a little bit like wonky, usually I just kind of like think about it as like, okay, so what is the delay here? Like how much more of a beat, I guess, between my actions is there, generally speaking. Yeah, and then
Because I feel like on those other TVs, like it's harder for me to do things like punishes, for example. I can move still fine, okay, and like big picture stuff, like it's gonna be fine. And like even if I have to like dash dance around like a fox or something and get like a tight pivot grab, like it's still fine to do. But the second it's like out of shield stuff or anything like that, where it's like execute on this timing out of shield almost, if that makes sense. Like, oh, here's a bad aerial out of shield, or I don't know, like they're floating above my shield or something like that. I don't like, or they down smash my shield. I'll use the GHM example. They down smash my shield. I know it's like a certain timing after shield's done that I can jump, like lean towards them and fair them or something, right? But on a laggier setup, I don't really know how to adjust those things well. Like, and I guess obviously the answer, like maybe like Zane is saying, like you just got to do it, get good. But
so how do you
I
know
I don't know how to practice it at home.
How do you active shield? Like what's your cue?
Well, for me, it's like one, like anticipation of like what move they're gonna use, and if I'm right, like I get a visual confirmation, and then two, it's wait for the timing that I know that's like, I guess like baked in to what I know how to play, and like it's like look, respond, and act. That's kind of how I see it. So
agreed.
I guess my problem is like the act, like because the timing for act is off. I don't know how I'm supposed to practice being comfortable with that. Like if I'm only used to one timing and that's what I have at home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what I would say is we have to go back to basics then. Because there is a visual cue that happens that tells you when shield stun is over. So like what I would say is like look for that. If you notice that you've missed it, like look at it. See when it happens and then visualize how the input is different.
Yeah, okay, so I guess it's more dependent on like reaction at that point, like focusing on the screen kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it's more like we're recalibrating based on like because it's a perception issue, right? Like we're moving either too fast or too slow. Usually it's A or like there's only so many ways that we can be messing up. It's either we're too fast or we're too slow. So if we're going too fast, then we need to recalibrate accordingly. So the way I would do it is the one concrete thing that we have is the shield stun is over animation. Like when the shield like when the shield is hit by down smash, it disappears briefly. Then it returns. It's on the frame it returns that you're actionable. So knowing that, my approach would be, all right, I see my shield disappear. It's come back. Okay, cool. I've timed it too early, so like now I've like rolled forward instead. So when did the shield come back? Because that's really, or like when did my character start moving? Because like really that's the moment that I need to be like kind of like shifting ahead for. So like what is the amount of time between when I press the button to jump and when the shield actually came back and then I started to roll? Because that's the difference. That's like the amount of time I'm off by.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then yeah, it's
Yeah, I actually didn't know that about the like the shield disappears and that's when the shield stun's over. I didn't know that.
yeah.
It makes sense. Like I've seen it, but I didn't. No one's ever like said that, or I've never read it anywhere, which is
Yeah, no,
interesting. I guess.
nobody's ever like sat like yeah. Well, and the thing is like it's in videos, but like those aren't
Yeah,
very difficult
it's
to
one of the
search.
things you see. Yeah.
And but yeah, like if nobody told you, how would you know, right? But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that's what that means. There's two animations. One of them is the TV static, which also there's okay. So for anything that does under a certain amount of like shield damage or shield stun, with like a single hit, there's TV static that appears. This
Yeah.
also, and then once that goes away, that's when you're actionable. The static still happens on the power hits. It's just after a certain point, the shield just disappears entirely, and then it comes back, and that's when you're actionable. So it's either there's static,
Okay.
it's either there's static, and when it's gone, you're good, or if it's more powerful, like think like around Fox's Nair, like Peach's up air, like that kind of power, Peach's dash attack, that kind of power.
Mhm.
Then in that one, you're looking for when the shield comes back. It'll flicker, like disappear and then come back.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so then once you have that sense of like what the difference is between when you timed it and when it actually happened, you have kind of like a reference point for what you adjust to.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. Cause like I'll usually the way I do it is just I have a feel for like the animation that they're doing. Like if it's like down smash for example, like it's a longer one obviously. As long as I don't get shield poked, like I'll know like okay she spun this many times, like now I can jump kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is like basically the same thing. I feel like it might as well be, but this one I guess is like more. I don't know. I don't know if it's actually more. It might be because it's like
This is definitely more accurate because the one
Yeah.
problem with the number of spins is that what if you're shield DIing into her?
well, yeah, exactly. Like what if I'm or like out even like if there's like less
Yeah.
hits I'm getting hit by. Yeah.
So like
No, that's good.
yeah, like the number of spins works in a standard position, but the whole point of like what we're addressing is what do we do when it's like a not standard timing or position as a result of like other factors at play? How do we adjust then? So what we need is a more accurate method, and this happens to be the only one that we know about as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So might as well go with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I feel like. Yeah, I think because the problem is weirdly enough lately the I can't execute part of tournaments like hasn't been there lately. Like it has here and there, but as the tournament goes on, like I'll shake it off almost. And like I was able to shake it off yesterday, but I don't really know. I don't know why it's there to begin with, you know? I think that's what like annoys me about it the most. Like I know how I can deal with it with time, and that's like whatever. But and I guess it's good also to have like preventative measures, but I'm not really sure like how I should deal with it, you know? Cause yeah. So like I lose to MG, I have like 20 minutes before I play medley, and like I'm fine. And that's kind of what it is.
And then
I thought.
and then Moki.
Yeah, I lost to Moki Marth, but I just got better playered. I also like actually, well, funnily enough, like on a lot of spots on against Curtis, like I thought that he was moving way better than I was, and I felt like I was like swinging or like not acting at certain spots. But I watched it back today, and I was like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like it felt that way, but I was like, it was fine. Like I could have made better choices in a lot of spots anyway, so I'm like, that's not why I lost. Like it's whatever. But like even still, like the medley and Moki sets were like night and day compared to like what I played 3 sets before in the tournament, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's just a weird thing. I'm like, preventative measures are good, and I think that's probably what I'll use like going forward, just to like keep at it. But and like I'm not really worried about losing like a round 1 or 2, so that's whatever. Like maybe I just before I play like someone who I know is good, like MG or like I'm about to, like I should just go and warm up. I guess that makes sense saying it out loud.
Yeah, like
But
warm up, like gonna be fighting tough opponent, warm up. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
tracks.
yeah, like it's not deep.
The logic is sound.
Yeah, but it does also feel weird about like let's say it's like a major tournament, right? Like I'm not really scared of losing my round 1 or 2. Like I'm usually pretty fine in those spots. I've never done it yet, I don't think. But like round 3 is, well, it's just like almost the same as a local. Like round 3 is usually where it starts to get like tough. Like okay, people are like confident at like playing like certain mix-ups that I have, and it's like okay, now I need to like either execute in some spots more. I can't just do the same thing over and over. But like for those, like I don't really know if like I can and at majors I will, like I'll warm up before round 1, and I'm like I stress about it quite a bit, but like it's just to get me locked in kind of thing. I don't want to talk to people. I'll just play. And then at the locals I won't, like cuz I'm like getting TVs, I'm running the stream, I'm commentating, whatever. And I'm even like less worried about at a Toronto local, like about my round 1 or 2. But I think yeah, it is weird because like I'll notice it during my rounds 1 or 2, like oh I'm not playing good, or like I'm not doing what I want, but like it should be fine. Like, and then my next set, like I said, like I don't really see it as like a marathon almost. I'll treat each one individually, and then I'll look back on it as like a marathon. I'm like, okay, in my next set, like it's a different set. I'm gonna play different. That's just what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a different matchup. Like, how am I doing there? And I think there is truth in saying like people will play different, or people will play better or worse in other matchups. Like if they're trying to stick to a game plan, which like I think is true. Like I can usually like sit comfy and like turn my brain off a little bit against Jigglypuff in most spots if it's not Faust. But
even if he
like,
is, you were literally taunting him one tournament. Like,
yeah,
I feel like if you have time to like do Marth's taunt like 4 times in a match, like yeah, you can have time to like chill.
Yeah. But like against every Falcon, like I have to sweat a little bit because I'm like, oh my god, like I'm not comfortable in this matchup. Like, and that's something we could talk about another time. But I'm like, yeah, I am not comfortable in this matchup. I can die off any hit. It doesn't matter how good they are. They just need a hit. Oh my god, and I can't execute. Which, like, again, I mentioned earlier, I need to put a time on that on my own. But, yeah, it's weird because I'm like I said, like I think depending on even less so like less about like I'm consistent throughout the tournament. Like sometimes I'll treat it like match to match where it's like against this character I can execute. This one I'm like, oh my god, all my timings are off. Like for throws, for example, like every character has different throw timings, right?
Yep.
Something like that.
Unless the throw is weight independent.
Sorry. Well, yeah, but I don't think Marths are for any of them.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So like, but like up throw, like I'll use it's like Jigglypuff. Like I'll use almost like every time, right? Like I'll like the timing for like up throw chain grabs on Fox and Falco or like Sheik is like completely different than up throw execution on like Falcon or like Ganon or something. Like I don't really up throw Ganon much anyway, but like that I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. It's like even if I'm playing good or quote unquote like making good decisions, I always worry that like it's almost like random the next set that I play, like if my execution's gonna like follow me in it, you know? And like sometimes there's different factors involved. Like is it the character requires different execution in some points? Is it a different TV?
Why does
like
it matter,
am I
though?
tired?
Why does it matter though?
Like well, I would say it matters because it's like a different scenario, and like sure, maybe I'm good at like it's almost similar to like the TV thing. Like sure, maybe I'm good on like one TV, or maybe I'm good at like one matchup, but in another one I might be really bad. And I know the answer for that is like, okay, we'll go practice at home and that's fine.
No,
Like, and I'm
not at all. That is not my answer to that, but go off. Like keep going.
Like yeah, my point is like there's other things in the matchup I can get better at that like won't make that as much of a factor, which is like I can put in the time for that, sure. But I think I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Oh no, here it is. It's maybe it's like one TV I'm good on, the other one I'm not, like whatever, we can deal with that. Or like maybe it's one match I'm good at, the other one I'm not, and like I can get better at it, that's fine. But it does feel like pretty consistently like even if I run into like certain foxes, uh because each set is like different, and I don't know. I think like if the fox is consistent, sure, whatever. But I don't feel like my execution follows me, if that makes sense. You know, like
Yeah.
it feels like it's a reset every time.
So, two things.
Mm-hmm.
One, part of the purpose of that whole like you always using the hand warmer is that it standardizes how you enter the set.
Yeah, which I like for what it's worth. Like I like that. It's like I'm doing like headphones and all that too. But yeah,
Would you say that
that totally makes sense.
Would you say that Wizrobe is a consistent player?
No, I wouldn't. But I don't know. I also don't. I don't pay super close attention.
You're
to
insane.
but...
Like you are so removed from reality if you're saying Wizrobe is not a consistent player. Like,
I mean, fair enough, but I just don't watch them, so yeah.
Fair enough. Then say so. Like I don't know is a better answer than like just like YOLOing it. Like in general, like than just like you know throwing out our first assumption. Because like,
well, my line of thinking was results. Like I feel like sometimes he gets like top 3, and other times he like kind of gets 9th or whatever. But yeah, I guess he's pretty consistent for like wins losses, but not like tournament placings, if that makes sense.
So let me get this straight. So at like a CEO level event or like a Riptide level event where he gets like 3rd, if he goes to Big House, he gets where it's like where there's more threat density, he gets like basically the same placing adjusted for more people. And we're making the case that that is not consistent.
Well, my thought is like I don't know, like, and to be fair, I guess the missing factor here is like I don't know who we lost to at Big House, which again, like I don't pay too much attention to him.
Mm-hmm.
But like yeah, like at Riptide he beat Plup, he beat like basically everyone to get there. I'm pretty sure he beat Aklo. No, Aklo didn't make top 8 at Riptide. I'm not sure who he beat in winners, but like I know there was like heavy hitters at Riptide as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it felt like I heard nothing out of Wizrobe, which again could be because I don't pay enough attention to him, but also because it was just kind of quiet from him, you know?
No, he just doesn't say anything. That's just his thing. Like,
well, yeah, I know that. But I mean other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because he just beat all the people that he normally beats, except for like
Okay.
one set or whatever versus Plup, but then he lost to him anyway.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Yeah, so Wizrobe is like an extremely consistent player. Usually beats the people you'd expect him to. That's like one of his superpowers. Like when he got top 8 at Genesis, almost everyone he fought like was basically who you'd expect him to beat.
Okay.
I firmly believe that like a huge component of that is the fact that he does have a standard ritual for like starting every single one of his sets, and he's very, very strict about following it. I'm not saying that we have to be as like strict as he is about how he prepares, because that might not work for you, and there might be diminishing returns after a while. Everyone is different, but I do think that you said that that you feel like there's no carryover. To me, this is a way that we create carryover because we're making things more similar to each other.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like it may not be the case that my timings or whatever carry over, but as long as just like, because I don't really like ritualistic players, if that makes sense, you know? Like,
what do you like?
I like being comfortable. I think people who are very...
Do you think Wizrobe is not comfortable? I feel like all of this is to be comfortable.
Yeah, well, that's like the ironic part about it. I think, yeah, he might be, but I think a lot of Wizrobe imitators, I don't even know if Wizrobe is, because I see him tweaking sometimes in his face, but that could just be like something else. But
I feel like to have the freedom to express yourself so openly like that is absolutely a sign of comfort.
Yeah, that's possible. Maybe. I don't know. People do weird things under pressure, but I do see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's like it's not out of the question.
Yeah, no, but yeah, like I watch Aklo, for example, and he has rituals. They're not as like I would say like cartoonish as Wizrobe in some spots, but he is very like I think even Curtis has rituals. Like Curtis will like brood around the tournament, like listen to music before he plays, and like he does that every time. And like Aklo has his hand warmer. He does that. He like warms up the same way. He like wants to make sure he's hitting all his stuff the same way. And if he isn't, he starts getting like very, very nervous to the point where it looks like he's gonna break already before he's played. You know, like he almost looks like he's about to have a panic attack every time he's about to play a set if the conditions aren't lining up for him. And that's where I worry. Like I see that, and I see other people who are like, you know, just confident in their rituals. And I think if I were to implement it, I would need them to be like such a non-issue if they don't go well, or such a non-issue if I can't do them, that it doesn't matter. Does that make sense? Like I do see the value in like adding consistency to like a tournament setting. Like, and that's even like part of what the guide I was reading today was saying. Like, if you emulate the feeling of playing in tournament over and over and over, that's basically like practicing tournament. You're gonna get better at it, which like totally makes sense. At the same time, I feel like if you add too many variables to what that is for you, then it can go really bad, if that makes sense. Like the second it's removed. So I don't know. I think the hand warmer, I think you're right. There is no world where I can't get that. That's fine. But I do worry about like what the hand warmer like means if it doesn't go well, or like if I'm not thinking about it in the right way. And that worries me, because like it's not often the case where I'm like thinking about the same thing when I'm playing all the time, you know? Does that make sense?
It does. So let me remind you, because we've actually already addressed the hand warmer side.
Yeah.
Remember,
yeah, I was thinking that too.
Remember, the purpose of the hand warmer is not so that we are like judging our play or like deciding if we're playing good or not. The purpose of the hand warmer is so that we can assess based on, like, it's so that we can assess how the TV feels, how the controller feels in our hands, how we can move and get that like good wave dash or good wave land, or that fast fall on the nair. Like those inputs that are really critical, really core, and sometimes a little tricky depending on the TV. We're all we're doing is assessing how the TV feels and how we can do those inputs comfortably, not consistently, not perfectly, just comfortably.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
like,
sense.
So we're not going. So the distinction I draw here is Aklo, from what you're describing, sounds like he is using this time as a way to like reassure himself and reaffirm for himself that he can do all his things. He can just do all of his combinations perfectly. But we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're acknowledging that this is a new set, which is aligned with what you already believe anyway, from what you've described. Yeah. Yep. This is a new set, but we're going to see what things we can spot about how this TV will be different for how this new TV or this station will be different for the new opponent we're going to be fighting. So it's more about being confident in our observations. Honestly, like towards the end of the hand warmer, I'd even recommend switch your field of vision to the opponent, because that also gets us into the habit of, okay, cool, so practice is ending, now the set is beginning, so we're going to keep our eyes on the opponent, so that because that's where they need to be anyhow. And I think that by doing things like that are more about the process and the quality of the process, I think you'll find that your consistency probably goes up.
That makes sense, yeah. I think, like it does. Like that part makes sense. I meant to say, I think, I'm curious then if that's like the case, what that means for Moki and like him listening to music every time. Because like I think at majors, like I keep saying I think that's like a speech habit.
I know what you mean.
I know at majors, like you have a lot more time before you play your next opponent, to like go do whatever it is you need to do. Like obviously in pools that's not the case, but like locals are basically just like back-to-back pools, you know. So I guess what I'm curious is like, what does that mean for him? Like, is it the same thing as like what I'm doing at the local, where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna like zone out, like focus on my own, or is that like a ritualistic thing? I mean, I know obviously I can ask, but I guess what I'm wondering is like if that's removed for him, is it gonna crumble, or like should that be something he worries about? Because I know I can ask him, is it gonna crumble? Like, but should it be something that he worries about? How how do you shake off like inconsistency? Which I don't know. I think maybe you just got to deal with it, but which is what Zane says is like you just got to get good, I guess. But I don't. I don't know. That just sounds awful.
You will never overcome
Yeah.
the fact that this game is played by a person.
Yeah.
The reality is there will be small bits of variance that, despite our sincerest efforts, we will never get rid of.
Yeah, that
all.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. So, in the case of Moki, Moki has found that listening to music, giving himself like space to like think and pace and stay moving, that is the best way for him that he knows about right now, that I know about right now, for him to be the best player that he can be on game day, because for him, keeping his body moving, like not getting sucked into like overexert. Like his play style is very high. No, it takes a lot of exertion. Like he does a lot with his plays. It's very strenuous. It's a lot of energy. It's very strenuous. So as a result, he doesn't play as much on like game day, because he needs to keep because that's what's important to him. That's what he's identified he needs. That said, he'll still do the hand warmer, I believe. And I think
he does, yeah.
Yeah, so he still like does the hand warmer to make sure that he's like to like warm up his fingers and stuff. That's all very well and good. I think that's a good idea. As for
Okay, that's sorry, go ahead.
As for like whether or not that gets rid of all the variance, absolutely it does not. Like there's going to be always some that's there, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is to reduce, not eliminate.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Cuz yeah, what I was going to say was it's ironic though he does the hand warmer on like another setup. Like I'm sure it's funny because I was having an argument about Faust with this a little while ago, where it's like at majors you're supposed to, like the rule is for the rule set that you can only have a minute long hand warmer, and he did not want me to take more than a minute, and I was like, and he didn't want me to leave the setup to play. I had to warm up on that setup, whatever, and I was like, there's an Uncle Punch setup in the venue, but whatever, fine, I will warm up for 1 minute, and that's all you're giving me, sure. But it's ironic because yeah, I feel like if the point of a hand warmer is to just get a feel for how you're moving, how things are going on the setup, and then just like locking in, warming up at a different setup at a tournament like almost feels kind of like useless. Like obviously it's not. Like it's good just to like keep yourself going, I guess, but if that's like the point of it, it feels weird, right?
Well, it's not the only point of it. Like we also get we get information on the TV, sure, but we also get information on what feels comfortable, what doesn't feel comfortable for like in our hands. We get information on how easy it is or difficult it is to follow the opponent's, like to like switch to watching the opponent towards the end of it. So that can tell us things about like how much attention we have. There's lots of other information we're getting. We just haven't listed all of it off.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That's fair. Yeah.
Do you not believe me?
No, I do. It's just funny because like we haven't talked about it, I guess. Yeah. But like yeah, like like if I like were to be at a tournament right now, I feel like that's how I would also feel, where it's like I have well, or like how I've used hand warmers up to this point. It's like that's not my takeaway of it for how the TV feels. I can feel it, but like what I'm thinking about is like, okay, how am I executing like this waveland, for example, or how am I doing this or that or whatever? Does that feel good? Whatever. So yeah, like it makes sense. It's just yeah, we haven't talked about it. If that makes sense? That hasn't been like the focus of it.
Well, yeah, because like we've gone over a lot of other things. We've gone over like more about like how
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's fair.
How do we handle like conditional elements of like the actual equipment? Because the thing is, like, we'll never have control over every single piece of we'll never have control over all of this, and that's okay, because the reality is that what we're even if we were playing this game online as the only form of play, there's still going to be minor variants just because that's just how it is. Connections will vary. People will be closer. People will be further. So I would just view, I mean, like, and you function pretty well when it's like, 16 ping versus 60 ping versus like 80 ping, right? So
yeah, no, I do. Yeah,
I would just view the different TVs as different forms, as having different pings, like slightly different amounts of ping.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, it's different, obviously, like for feel, but I guess it's just like a good way to look at it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I also just like the idea of like, well, I think it helps for a couple of reasons. Like, treat it like it's a different set, like different game, if that makes sense. Like, different set versus like different player. So like I might be different. I like that because it's good for like keeping prepared. Like I'm not like looking ahead in the tournament kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like when we start looking ahead, that's like I've never played well after doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I don't know. I still like that, but I don't know. I think it's comforting knowing that like you can still add variance to or like invariance to variance, if that makes sense. While still not letting have everything go your way. Cause like I'm very okay with the idea of like not everything's gonna go the way you want. Like you're a person playing the game. Like that obviously makes sense. I don't hit everything I want to when I play. It's just when I'm not hitting the crucial stuff while I'm actively trying to do it, that's when it's very frustrating. Versus like there are times when I'm actively trying to hit other things, obviously, but those seem to like go away and not matter nearly as much in the big picture. Versus like when I'm playing my set against like Quiggles or MG last week and I'm like, oh my god, I can't do anything and these guys are just steamrolling me right now. What do I do? But I think I have like a couple answers now for like how to deal with it ahead of time. And if I still run into that issue while it's happening, like I guess just lock in. Like which is fair. Like that's at the end of the day, you're still playing someone. Like it's okay to lose and be beaten by them if you're playing bad. That's probably deserved, But yeah, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, and one last thing, the only other thing I'd suggest is get some sleep. You need to take care of yourself, because the other thing I'd add is, even if it wasn't the cause of this, it takes a while for us to make up a sleep deficit. And it absolutely makes us like less patient and less good at dealing with the setbacks. So even if it's not causing the setbacks, it still makes us more vulnerable to them, So
yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah, so take care of yourself, okay?
Yeah, I'll make sure. It's ironic. I actually was literally watching a video on sleep before we got in here. It's like 15 minutes, but I don't know what her official title is. She's like she studies people's sleeping habits. But what she said is good sleep is actually just whatever you need to like get through the day and not want to crash. Which I thought was interesting. Like it's not necessarily about like there is like I'll send you the video if you actually care to watch it. It is
I would
cool.
love to see it. You finish the video I sent you though.
Yeah, of course. I will. And I'm still in the process of reading that last guide, but I've just been reading it while I have free time at work, and it's been going well.
Nice. Like I said, if you have any questions or something feels not right with that guide, like please let me know.
Yeah,
because
I've been taking notes. Yeah.
It was written for an older time, so not everything in there is perfect, but it's more to just get you thinking about things more broadly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Perfect. So, normally I don't want to do this, but I'm actually very tired too, and we are at time.
No, it's totally fine. Yeah.
So we'll talk soon, but if you need any support on any of the stuff we've gone over, let me know, because I am here to help, and go get some rest. Have a good one, Maher.
Awesome. You too. Peace.